Hi, welcome to Jed's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that a lot. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a suggestion for a video, a question about this one, you want to tell me how you do things, or you just want to say hi, those things are all great, and I love to see your comments. So today I'm going to do kind of more of an upright sort of cocktail ring with a pretty rutilated quartz, and it's going to be a teardrop shape, and it's a pretty big one. It's a 15 by 20, and I'm going to try and do something slightly different than I've done before. It's kind of a pillar-like setting for it to sit on top of a ring. It should make it stand up and catch a lot of light, so I think it's going to be one of those kind of bold cocktail rings that you only wear when you go out to a fancy dinner or something, but I think it's going to be pretty, so we'll see. Give it a shot. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. First group are my patrons over on Patreon. I have a nice group of people over there. They not only financially keep me afloat, but they provide a really cool kind of artistic community over there, and we can all tap into each other's knowledge and share ideas, and it's great. I have a new one, Roma. Thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. I think you'll find it's a great place over there with a lot of cool people, so thanks again. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 21,300, I believe. We're getting close to 21,400 now. That's really amazing, and I appreciate your support. I love the comments I get on YouTube. Occasionally people tell me how I've helped them get out of a slump, or they've learned a lot from me, or whatever, and those kind of stories really make me feel good, and I do appreciate that. I also really appreciate your financial support when you buy something off my merch store, like my ebooks or my notebooks that you can do your designs in. Or if you do a super thanks or buy me a coffee. Those things really help with my overhead, and I do appreciate that, so thanks again. All right, well, let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get over on my merch store. I have a number of different designs. This particular one has a wire gauge to inches to millimeter chart on the back that I find pretty useful. Some of the other ones have different conversion charts or saw blade information or ring sizing stuff. Check those out on my merch store. I like them because when I started the YouTube channel, I started after the initial part of it, I started to keep track of all of my projects in a book, and I find these to be a great way to do that in case I want to go revisit something I've made and remember how I did it. So that has been beneficial to me over the long run. So get yourself one of these. I think they're handy. Let's see. So here's today's project, and I do not know if this is going to work or not, but it's going to be a fun experiment. So here's my rutilated quartz. By the way, if you get confused between rutilated quartz and terminated quartz, rutilated quartz usually has reddish or gold colored kind of crystals running through it. Terminated is typically black, although I have seen terminated quartz with green tourmaline in it, so there's probably some other types of quartz with different minerals running through it, but these are the most two common ones, I think. So we're doing rutilated quartz today. So rutilated means it's got rutile needles running through it. Rutile is a different mineral. So, so my thought is this is going to be kind of a tube that I made out of 18 gauge, and I pre-made that, and it's taller than it's going to be eventually, but I wanted the stone to sit on its pavilion in there, like that. And then I'm going to build some prongs that come up off of that to hold this stone in place. And I may need to do some more filling with the shape of this to get it to fit just perfectly in there. But I'm thinking I'm going to attach the prongs in 4 spots on the outside of this tube. I made this tube out of 18 gauge sheet, and I did it a little bit bigger than I drew it because I knew the bottom of this stone is pretty big. And it's called a pavilion, the bottom part. So I want that to sit in there. And I'm definitely going to cut this shorter so it doesn't stick up quite so high as that, because that's going to be too awkward, I think. So we'll cut it a couple of millimeters off of that at least. And then we're going to ground it to make it sit on top of the band. But I think probably what we need to do first when we get started on this is I need to make a base for the girdle of the stone to sit on, and that's going to be kind of what holds the prongs where they need to be. And so I want the prongs coming up on the outside of that base to just come outside of the girdle here on kind of the tip up here on either side of the tip of this teardrop, and back here so it can't move either way. That's going to be a little challenging. We'll give it a shot and see how it works. But like I said, I'll probably have to do a little more reshaping here. But to start with, let's talk about materials. The band and the tube here are 18 gauge sheet, which is 1 millimeter. I haven't made the band yet. I'll make that in front of you probably. The prongs themselves are 16 gauge square wire, which is this. Okay. And that's really all we need for this one, I think, unless I'm not remembering something. 16 gauge square is 1.3 millimeters. But I think our first step is we need to get something for the base here that just fits right underneath the girdle there. And then one of the things we're going to do after we make this piece that fits right underneath the girdle is, in order to make the stone sit in there nicely, we're going to taper this inwards so that it kind of sits down deeper. And that'll probably be our first step. So let's do that. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder primarily. I use a liquid flux that I dribble onto the dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It pulls in atmospheric air through these little holes, and that mixes with the gas in the chamber here and creates a nice hot flame. It's not as hot as oxyacetylene because you're not pumping pure oxygen into the flame, but it's hotter than a propane torch, so it's kind of a nice medium level, which is great for silversmithing. I've been using that for years, and I really like it. So I use a #1 tip as well. Okay, so let's make this thing here. I'm going to start by kind of straightening this out a little bit. So we're starting from a consistent shape. Square wire has a tendency to twist on you when you bend it, so as we do this, I'm going to try and correct that as we go. But I think to start with, we can actually use our ring manual if we want to just kind of get this started over here. And see, we can go smaller than that. Needs to be a skosh smaller. We're getting in the range though. That's about where I want it, I think. So there's two ways you can do this. You could cut it straight down the center with a saw, or I could just cut it off right there, solder that exactly where it goes, and then trim off the excess. Either way is going to work okay. I think that's usually a little bit easier. So we'll just cut this right where the two come together. Pretty close. I'll move that down, and then I'm going to file that just a little bit. That's not bad. Let's solder that together, and then we can start thinking about other things we need to do. We make sure it's all sitting in the same plane, kind of. At least pretty close. I do something called pick soldering a lot. Oops. It's where I pick up a little bit of solder and then I bring the piece of silver up to the soldering temperature and then touch it where I want it to go. It usually just jumps right on there as long as you have gotten the piece up to the 1450 degrees that it takes to make hard silver sheet solder flow. So that'll be our first thing. If you're interested in learning how to do that, that's a really useful skill. I'll put a link up there for you to my pick soldering video. It's a pretty popular video, and I think it kind of shows how you can kind of speed up your process a lot by doing this, and also give yourself a little more precision on getting things in place. So we'll pick up this little bit of solder here on the end of my pick. Heat this up to the soldering temperature or thereabouts. I have a tendency to get in there too early. If you have to sit there and hold it, you put it in there too early. So it should just, as soon as you touch, it should just jump on there because the metal is the right temperature for that. So if it doesn't, then it's not quite there. Just cut it off there and we'll file that down. Okay. So I'm going to take a diamond burr and I'm just going to file with my, or I'm going to grind away a slope going this direction like that to match the underside curve of this thing. So I will be right back after I do that. You probably don't need to watch me do that. I'm just going to use my rotary tool and grind that around. It's just a little quicker than filing. So I'll be right back. Okay, hopefully you can see this, but I've got kind of a taper going in and the top edge is pretty narrow now. I may take that even further as we get closer to the end of the project, but I also, since this is gonna be sitting right here and these are going to be angling up from the tube, I'm going to have to angle the outside a little bit to get a nice neat look. So I'm going to take my file and taper that outside edge. That's looking pretty good. I might taper it just a little bit more. So I need to figure out where I want those prongs to attach. This is another reason I like to draw things up, because I can just use it as a template if I've sketched it out to start with, you know. So, alright, I have thoughts about how to do this. I have this new, it's a fibrous kiln brick that one of my YouTube followers sent me, which was nice. It's soft, so you can poke things into it. So I'm going to need to have some that sticks up above this to act as the prongs. And so I'm going to be pushing these inwards. But I think, let's see. Keep in mind here, I've never done this particular sort of thing before, so this is kind of an experiment. Let's see how long that was that I just estimated. 27 or 28, somewhere in there. And 20. I still got enough 16 gauge left in case I screw up, which is a distinct possibility. That should make it a bit easier to twist these. That's kind of what I was thinking for that. Let's see if we can get these ones twisted too. I don't need to make them go in so far. Well, that's pretty close. Let's cut some solder and try that. I believe we got good solder joints. I may have had a little sag in this thing. Cut off the very bottoms of these just a little bit. Right now I'm just kind of straightening these prongs and making sure everything's sitting the way it's supposed to sit. At least the way in my brain it's supposed to sit. Okay, so, and this needs to be up higher than that. And so we're going to have to cut off some more of these prongs. I'm going to try and go with that, I think. If I can keep it in that position. Let's try and solder that on and see how it goes. I think I'm going to use some medium paste solder on this one just to give us some options later on. Just putting that there to prevent any undesired drops and things here. Well, let's take a peek how things turned out. Okay, a couple of things I did. This was not sitting very straight across the plane of the top of the tube here, and so I tried to get it a little bit more parallel to that. And the way I did that was I sawed through where I attached this, and then I proceeded to adjust the height of where it was soldered on here to try and get it evened out. And I went to resolder it back on once I had it where I wanted. And of course some of these other ones moved on me, so I played a little wobble game with trying to get them all to stay where I wanted them to be. And I finally think I won the battle, or at least close enough. The thing is, however, my original plan was to have this sitting right on that tube, and I did not get it exactly the right height to do that. And so a couple of things I could probably have done is just leave the tube long and solder these all onto it parallel if I'm thinking right, and then after you have the setting soldered on there, then start shaping it to match the stone as you go deeper and deeper. It might be a little hard to do that, but you could get a burr in there and work your way down. But I think in the long run it's not going to hurt to have a little space there, because it'll allow more light to get to the stone, and I think it'll be a pretty piece. So we'll see. I do need to cut this shorter though. It's significantly taller than I want it to be. So I'm going to do that with a saw. Let's go do that. I'm going to use a 00 on here. Oops. Okay, I'm going to file that a little bit. So let's say we're going to make a 9. Go a little bit beyond where they meet. I cut a wide strip to measure. That way it'll more be similar, since I'm going to do kind of a wide-ish band here. But in order to make this taper, though, I think let's scribe this out to this length on some 18 gauge sheet. I'm just going to make a little scratch right about where that length came to. And I'm thinking about how wide I want this to be. Don't have to have much space on either side. So maybe about there. Okay, so let's use these little guys. Alright, so I think, let's find the center of that first. So right here. Okay, so I have the center point this way. Now, I like to measure in from the outside to taper it. So let's go about 2 millimeters this way. About 2 millimeters from this edge. Do that on the other side. Okay, I'm going to cut out the rectangle and then I'll cut out the taper after that. Okay, let's straighten this out. You can use your miter vise jig for the ends of these if you want to. You have one of those. Incidentally, this stone was given to me by one of my patrons. I think it was anyway. I've gotten several really nice gifts from some people of stones, and in my reorganizing down here I've gotten some of them mixed up and I don't remember who gave me this one, but whoever did, thank you so much, because it's a pretty stone. My patrons are pretty cool. I have a nice audience in my Patreon. I have a big mixture of domestic folks here in the U.S. and a large number of people from around the world in different places. And it's really nice to get to chat with people from around the world. One thing it did do, working just with hard solder, so it taught me to be really careful about how I applied my heat and where I applied my heat. Which is key to understanding how soldering works and having good success with your soldering operations. Because you can watch which part of the metal is hot based on which solder joints reflow. So if you have solder joints on one side of it, and they reflowed, but the other side does not, that means the side where they reflowed has reached the soldering temperature, and the side that didn't flow has not. So you have inconsistent heating, and that oftentimes leads to bad solder joints. So okay, I'm going to spend a little time getting this taper nice and even looking, and then I'll be right back. So I got it kind of filed up a little bit. I was thinking we could just kind of dome it slightly. I'm going to use my rotary tool to kind of smooth that out a little bit more, and then we'll see if we can get that thing mounted on there. Okay, a couple things. I just shined that up a little bit better and smoothed out the little hammering dings. This, I cupped the inside of that just a little bit so it sits nicely on the curve there. Well, actually it needs to go a little bit more. That's pretty good. So I'm thinking, let's do this. I guess I don't need that other thing. So basically I'm going to solder it right like that, but I need to use easy solder since I used medium on the last one, so let me find some easy solder. Now the thing about this is most of the mass in this piece is in that band. There's quite a bit of metal there, and also third hand is going to soak up a lot of heat. And so I'm going to actively avoid this prong setting so I don't melt that prior to getting everything hot enough for this easy solder to flow, which is something that can happen. And let's hope I can get this kind of position straight. I guess we'll find out. So like I said, most of the heat's going on the bottom here. Let's cool that off and take a little peek. Okay, so what I will do is I will throw that in the pickle and let it soak for a bit. Somewhere along the way I'm going to cut out that center point with a saw, and then we'll set that stone at the end. Okay, I got everything kind of cleaned up and polished up, and I've curved these prongs a little bit and cut these ones shorter so they're just about where they're going to be. And then I'm going to push this guy in, and these I've thinned out so I should be able to bend them over this. I'm going to be a little careful though, because I don't want to, the tips of these sorts of stones are always a little bit fragile, so I'm going to try and do this gently. If I need to, I can always remove a little bit more material. So, last thing I usually do then is I usually cut these about midway down the girdle facets. So that right there. And then I'll smooth those out with the Dremel with first a white polishing wheel, and then a blue silicone abrasive wheel that is kind of a fine grit, so that'll smooth it out the rest of the way. But then I'll get some pictures, and I think that's kind of what I was looking for. Let's see what my picture looks like. Yeah, that's kind of what I was shooting for. The only thing I really changed though was the domed ring, and I think I like that. Like I said, tell me in the comments whether you think I should have left it flat or whether you like it better this way. But either way, bold ring. Definitely an eye catcher. If you want to be the center of attention, wear this ring. All right, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. That was the tube pillar setting. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I'd love it if you'd take a moment and head over to my main channel page. I have, last I checked, 492 videos, I think. I've been doing this for 3.5 years or so, at 3 per week, so it's really kind of added up, and there's a lot of content there. So I'm almost positive you'll find something else interesting for you. There's tons of project ideas. There's some tool stuff. There's techniques, particularly ideas for how to pick solder better and things like that. So check those out. Subscribe to my channel. I'd love it if you did that. And don't forget to check out the video description down below for some important links, including links to my Patreon, my ebook, if you're interested in getting that guide to last year's tutorials or the year before's tutorials. Those are a super handy way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. So get yourself one of those. And there's even a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks that I showed you at the beginning. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.